What is up, YouTube? My name is Evan, and I wanted to just quickly go over. Last weekend, I played in a Dallas-Fort Worth area, in Irving specifically, League Cup, which I won. I took first place, and the list is a ZoroPod list. It is not my list. It belongs to Nick Brad, so shout out to him. But I still wanted to go over it really quickly. I'd been in the area very recently to another event, and I saw there wasn't a lot in the way of like Buzzwole kind of stuff, and I was like, there's a lot of Zoroark here. What can really handle this? And I thought the ZoroPod list was really good. He's running just 4-4 line on the Zoroark. He's running two big old Golisopods, and then just the 3 Wimpods. I've seen people running like 4, but I think that's really not necessary. The Macargo putting in a lot of work. Double Slugmas to support those 2 Macargos. 2 Tapu Kokos, just to make sure you kind of like you don't prize them, and they're great pivots, so you can Acerola, you can Guzma, things like that for your Golisopod. You kind of just 2-hit most things, but the Golisopod's GX does allow you to kind of surprise one-shot Lele's with Band, which is pretty nice. And also 2 Lele, speaking of which, to go search for stuff. And that's a lot of Pokemon, but it actually works very, very smoothly, and it was never ever a problem. Just the Zoroarks really help you cycle through that. And so kind of moving on from that, supporters, we are running kind of the, not necessarily obligatory, but like I feel like it's something you should consider almost obligatory in every deck for Cynthia's. We got quad Guzmas because I mean that's something that Golisopod just thrives on. We're running 3 Acerolas. Picking up that Golisopod after it takes a hit is amazing. And just once you've got like a Wimpod on your bench, you come up with the Golisopod, bash somebody, and then next turn you can just Acerola that thing back up, bring up the Tapu Koko, evolve, attach that grass energy back down, put it up, drop down another Wimpod. It's a nice cycle. It's hard for a lot of decks to break over time. You can just wear them down. It's very much how I like to play. We got 2 Apricorn Makers. And Tate and Liza, this card is a 1-of. It's amazing. This is very useful, especially in my my final match versus Sylveon. And I'll go ahead and tell you that was Sylveon control. It was a hard matchup. If it weren't for this card, I would have lost. I ended up 2-0ing the Sylveon. We did go to time, but I ended up 2-0ing it. And this card had a lot to do with it. Just the ability to get that switch. And it is searchable with Lele as well. I can't recommend this card enough. It's kind of flying under the radar for a lot of people right now. But especially with Sylveon kind of rising at the moment, this card is very much worth your consideration. And on its worst day, it's just a slightly weaker Cynthia. Very much like in this list, there's also a Judge, of course. Nice for, especially if you go first, you can search it to reduce your opponent down card-wise, which is pretty nice. And as far as items go, we're running 4 Ultra Balls, we got 4 Nest Balls, and we've got 2 Timer Balls, which sometimes they totally betray you, and sometimes, sometimes they're pretty clutch, so it's kind of a toss-up there. We got 2 Choice Bands because we get a lot of Acerola action, so it's not necessarily like we need them more. That tends to work pretty well. 1 Devoured Field. Obviously, if you're squeezing that 130 out of Zoroark. We got Palpad, also a really useful card. I'd never felt comfortable with Palpad until I tested this list a lot, and that really made me a believer in Palpad's necessity. 1 Field Blower, which is pretty handy as well. And then the 1 Rescue Stretcher, and that's our item count there. All pretty useful. I have no complaints about pretty much any of this, and I have tested it quite a bit. And our energies are pretty straightforward as well. We're just running 4 DCEs and 4 basic grass energies. The matchups very quickly were round 1, Zoroark Greninja, beat that. A Lycanroc Garbodor Golisopod deck in round 2 that was kind of interesting, but I feel like it was trying to do a little too much. Beat that. Reshiram Ho-Oh, beat that down. We spread a lot of damage, and see kind of the problem I found with that deck real quick is Reshiram just does not one-shot your GXs, really. And it gives it some big problems. I mean, Golisopod wasn't making me super happy in that match, but that's fine, because we got plenty of Zoroarks. And then there was Buzz Garbodor Shrine in round 4, and he didn't get going fast enough, and we just ground him out. I think he didn't get the best of draws, but that's kind of how it goes sometimes. Rounds 5 and 6, we just ID'd to make sure we got into finals. Round 1 of finals was Zoroark Greninja. We won game 1, lost game 2. I made a debatable I think I made a small misplay. It'd been a really long day. No excuse, but it is what it is. And I searched the wrong thing with a nest ball off an apricorn maker on the first turn, and I think had I played it a little differently, he wouldn't have been able to snipe me with Guzma and drag the game out. But I won third game anyway, so it didn't matter. Zoroark was a little scary in top 4. We lost game 1, which was especially scary because we got not exactly a dead draw, but not the fastest start, and he went off pretty well. And he ended up winning that game after kind of a long fight. But we picked up the next 2 and went to Sylveon, which took forever. And basically the strat there was just wear it down, wear it down, wear it down, manage resources very, very, very carefully. And basically it was kind of a mind game. I ended up having to kind of psych her as much as possible into thinking I had no resources left, and eventually convinced her to leave damage on a Sylveon so that I could kind of use my last energy to drop a grass on a bench Golisopod, Titanize it up, and pick up a knockout. And it was her only Pokemon in play to prevent me from using Guzma to reset my Golisopod. So ended up picking up that one, and the last one was a time in the most agonizingly long finals match I have played in my life. But it was pretty fun, despite the fact that it was a real marathon after a long day. It's pretty cool, pretty legit. We're definitely on the road to Worlds, and I've got 75 points right now, and by the end of the first quarter in this season, hopefully I'll have the most points I can get without being able to attend a regional. So until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and keep your eyes on the channel, because we're going to be bringing you more competitive content like this.